Good evening and welcome into a new edition of Sports Bar. I'm your host, Travis Stanley, and today I have with me panelist Greg, Jack, and Sam. Guys, as usual, we start with App State football, and this week is a more somber Monday morning than Mondays of past, or at least recently, that is. App State dropped one against Troy on Saturday, 28-24. It was a back-and-forth game. We were talking before the show, the kind of game where if you have another 5 minutes on the clock, it might go the other way, but that's not how it worked out, and it definitely stings because, Jack, most likely this was the de facto conference championship game.
Yeah, now the conference really is decided in Troy's next game, which is against Arkansas State. App is probably looking at being the third in the conference, but still bowl eligible, which is nice. But I think Troy just came out, played a really good game, especially on the offensive side of the ball. And then on the defensive side, they stopped App's running game, which is the main point of the Appalachian offense, and forced us to throw, which was probably our downfall.
Yeah.
When you have a game where Marcus Cox and Jalen Moore both held below 100 yards, you know that the defense was really strong. I think it really comes down to that 4th and 6th play where they threw for a 43-yard game. That was a gutsy call, but one that ended up working in their favor. If they were to play it again, I don't know whether that would have worked in their favor, but it sure did on Saturday.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think this was exactly what everyone expected from the game. I mean, maybe not the outcome, but the game itself. This was just the powerhouses of the conference getting together, just an all-out slugfest on both sides of the ball. Good points for Appalachian, but I mean, again, like you said, they stopped the run game and they exploited what hadn't really been our problem in weeks past. Taylor Lamb had thrown the ball solidly in weeks past, but it was a stout defense, and you had to give Troy credit. They stopped us when they needed to, and it just seemed like it was going to be kind of one of those games where the last team to have the ball was going to be the team that won. Just one of those kind of games. So
yeah, Troy had
Troy
had the number one ranked rushing defense in the conference coming into the game. We were second, so we certainly no slouch, but they certainly did. You mentioned they held Moore and Cox under 100 yards, which was something that most people hadn't done on the year. And then coming into the game, I really did feel like Taylor Lamb might have his way with the secondary. I didn't feel like we'd be able to run the ball, but I thought if we were going to have success, we'd be able to possibly pick them apart down the field. But it came back to bite us, I think, in many ways, simply because that is not the way we've played all season. Not that we're not capable of playing that way, but we're not used to playing from behind. And Taylor is used to going out there and not losing you the ball game, not necessarily go win us the game, because usually that falls on the shoulders of our defense and our stout running game. But it stings that we can still get to a double-digit win season if we finish the year strong, finish 9-3, get to a bowl game, which obviously we will. And if we were to win that bowl game, you can finish 10-3 and still, I guess, feel good about yourself. But finishing the season last year 11-2 with by far the best overall record in the conference, but just dropping that one to Arkansas State last year leaves you certainly wanting more. But you hate to go ahead and kind of, I guess, turn your thoughts to next season already. But that being said, we do return several players. We're going to miss some key guys, but they'll still definitely be competitive next year. Turning to wrestling, our wrestling team also had a matchup this weekend, and they took down number 15th ranked Oregon State, and that score was a final of 25-15. And Jack, this was a top 25 program, like we just mentioned, who now App has individuals ranked in the top 20 in the nation, but certainly this was an upset for App.
Definitely, I think it gave App legitimacy to other programs that are looking into the NCAA, showing that App being probably the best wrestling team in the SoCon, having definitely the rest of the year and the coach of the year last year. I think it shows that App is a legitimate team here, and that the SoCon is a legitimate conference as far as wrestling. App has wrestlers ranked all through their lineup. They have a couple juniors that are ranked within the top 20. Their heavyweight is ranked within the top 15, I believe. So I think App is a legitimate program this year and should do pretty well.
Yeah, Appalachian has been I would say, a legitimate wrestling program since my father went here in the late 70s, early 80s. And I don't think that's necessarily something that a lot of people know, because wrestling just generally does not get a lot of attention. But if you do want to go out and watch a program at Appalachian that is of national significance, I think wrestling would be something that a lot of people don't realize, but something you probably should go out and take a look, because it's an exciting brand of collegiate wrestling. But we're going to turn now to our Rise program. Each week we show a small portion of the show here on App TV called Rise. That show takes you inside App State football, and this team, it takes a look at this team week by week, and here's a sneak peek.
Here come the Mountaineers on the blitz. 3rd down and short. They'll lob it up to the left. Douglas fighting with Howard. Silver's number 12 in gray. Quick pass to the left. It is caught, bobbled, and then taken away by the Mountaineers. Running it back down the right sideline is A.J. Howard to the 30. Howard down to the 20. Howard to the 10. That's an App State touchdown for A.J. Howard. 3rd down 10. Shotgun Silvers. Retreats. Throws to the left. It is knocked away. Incomplete. Beautifully timed by Clifton Duck. Troy coming after Lamb with 4 rushers. Lamb's going to throw deep down the sideline. Beautiful throw, and it is caught down the right side by Ike Lewis. Jalen Moore up the middle, finds a hold of the 25 and 20. Moore on his feet, 15. Stiff arm at the 10 to the 5. Jalen Moore will score. That's an App State touchdown. A beautiful run. 3rd and 15 from the 49. Silvers retreats to throw, and they wrap him up and bring him down. 2nd and 5. Lamb rolls out to the right on a bootleg and across the 50. All kinds of running room. 40 to the Troy 35 and out of bounds at the 30. Shotgun Lamb is going to throw it out to the left. One arm grab by Ike Lewis. What a catch by Ike. Shotgun Lamb. Jalen at running back. Gets the handoff. Has a hold of the 10. Jalen cuts it outside to the left. Jalen has the 1st down to the 5. Still going, and he is stood up at the 5-yard line. Lamb shotgun. Gives to Jalen running left. Jalen on his feet to the 1 and into the end zone. That's an App State touchdown for Jalen Moore.
Keep up to date with the black and gold on and off the field by following the Mountaineers on Twitter at @AppState_FB.
This new mom is struggling to get the skates just right. Now she's holding on for dear life.
You don't have to be perfect to be a perfect parent. Thousands of siblings in foster care will take you just as you are.
Welcome back into Sports Bar, where our attention now turns to the national scene and specifically to the NBA. And we were also talking a little before the show about the Charlotte Hornets. They started the season extremely strong. They started 6-1. They've since lost the last 2, and that's been to good franchises in both Toronto and Cleveland. And in the Toronto game, they got down a good deal, came back, only lost by 2, and for the most part played a solid game in Cleveland. But I certainly think they have, exceeded expectations, Greg.
I agree. I mean, I think the game against the Cavs was somewhat deceptive in that, I mean, they had incredible defense, particularly on James. They were able to hold him to, I think he missed 10 of his first 13 shots in the game, which just speaks to how well the defense played. But that kind of defense did leave an opening on Fry, who just exploded in the 4th quarter and came out with 11 points. But I think we're seeing some good things from the team.
Yeah, I think when you look at the Hornets, they're 6-3, but their 3 losses come against the Celtics, the Raptors, and the Cavaliers. Those 3 teams last year were what many consider the best teams in the East. I think what the Hornets are showing is that they can handle these teams, but I think the biggest problem is down the stretch, especially during the Raptors and the Cavaliers game. They were up on the Raptors by about 10 points, and then when it got to about the 4th quarter, the end of the 3rd quarter, they just let the game go, and that's really the biggest problem, I think, this year is that the Hornets are having trouble closing out games.
Moving from the NBA on to the NFL, it was a red-letter day for the Carolina Panthers. They found themselves up 17-3 at one point, and definitely, certainly in the driver's seat to win that ball game. You have very little protection for Cam the vast majority of the game, so many times. Even if he didn't get hit, he would just take a sack anyway and go down because, for one, you don't need him taking another hit, and 2, if he tries to make a play out of the pocket, then if you get out of the pocket and beyond the line of scrimmage, there is no such thing as illegal hits to the head unless it's a targeting call. So I'm okay with him going down, but Jack, I mean, how do you let that one slip away if you're Carolina? And really, you can't if you want to compete for the rest of the season.
I think that's a very good point. That was more of a game that they should have won and were looking to win. I think you look at the 2 turnovers that happened near the end of the game. Carolina was doing very well until those 2 turnovers happened. Cam had a throw that wasn't probably the best throw of the game, definitely not. That was intercepted by Eric Berry. Eric Berry took it to the house. That's kind of the turning point for me. But the defense definitely put them in a position to win the game on the final drive, and just kind of a great play by Marcus Peters coming in there and taking the ball from Kelvin Benjamin, really sealing the deal for the Chiefs. So I think, it's just a great play by Kansas City defense and not lackluster play by the Carolina offense. I think that's what you really have to look at.
Yeah.
I think it really was. I mean, if you watched the first half and the second half, you'd have thought you were watching 2 different games.
Oh, yeah.
Because the first half, I mean, the Panthers limited the Chiefs to, I think, 65 rushing yards. The second half, things just, for lack of a better way of describing it, just got messy. I mean, there were 17 unanswered points. The back-to-back third quarter sacks, I think, just really spelled disaster for that game.
And Alex Smith, it's definitely a Jekyll and Hyde situation oftentimes with him, but you see flashes occasionally of why he was the #1 pick coming out of college ever so often. Now, just as often, you see him throw a terrible pick in the first half and look, below mediocre. And in years past for Kansas City, even when they were kind of on a roll, that defense was really what was given the most credit, and no one really accounted for the Chiefs' offense because they said, well, we have Alex Smith at quarterback. But you're right. In that second half, he was rolling. Carolina couldn't make a tackle all of a sudden, and we already mentioned it, but the O-line fell apart. Sam, in your opinion, if they are able to get this season turned around in any degree and even sniff the wild card, what do the Panthers have to do?
Well, I mean, they got to stop losing games. I know it's simple to say, but this is a Carolina Panthers team that has slim to all. I might say no margin for error. The rest of the season, I think they kind of just they took their margin for error out, having lost this game. Their secondary, the Panthers are almost they're lucky that the score was as close as it was, because the secondary in that second half left 2 guys, Travis Kelce on the first play. I can't remember who the wide receiver was on the second play. The exact same play, wide open in the back corner of the end zone, and they're just lucky that Alex Smith didn't see those 2 players, or else it could have been a 1 or 2, maybe even 3 possession lead for the Chiefs. So I think, and it's been the story all year. The secondary just has to step up. Somebody has to step up and start making plays. You can talk all you want to about Josh Norman this, Josh Norman that, but we lost 3, I think, of our starting.
He was one man.
Right, he was one man. Granted, he was a great player, but you lost him, Charles Tillman, one of the other safeties, I think. So the secondary, depleted as it is, I think somebody has to step up, and you have some prospects, but they might not even be ready at this point.
I agree. The margin for error is certainly slim to none. Mm-hmm. And the bad thing when you're looking at the schedule is, frankly, it doesn't get any easier from here for the Carolina Panthers, but we'll see how that spells for the rest of the season. This week on our Mountaineer Spotlight, we want to highlight the men's club rugby team. We took a look at how they practice and what it takes on such a tough team. Our friend Brittany has the latest.
My name is Reed Ellis, and I got into rugby because my brother played for West Virginia, and I also started walking around campus, and I saw a couple of guys playing on Duck Pond. Thought it'd be fun, and went out next day, and everyone was really welcoming, and I just started joining the team since there. We practice 4 times a week, usually 6 to 8. During our main season, we usually watch film on Monday after the games that we have on Saturday. We watch film.
So what do you do at your practices to prepare for your games?
A lot of conditioning, a lot of different hitting drills, stuff to like hone our skills. For the first week, we have a bunch of new guys, so we teach them the basics, anywhere between passing, hitting, basic hitting styles, and our general overall play of how we move our offense and defense.
So what position do you play?
I'm a tight head prop, but I occasionally play winger. But other rugby people know that means.
I was about to ask, what does that mean?
Oh, prop is a guy, one of the bigger guys, which we basically are the front row in the scrums, and so we're basically contesting for the ball. So we're just pushing back and forth. And then wingers are the fast, skinny kids on the wing on the outside that catch the ball and they kick it off.
So how would you explain rugby to somebody who doesn't know what it is or who knows but doesn't understand it?
Okay, it's going to be rough. All right. So basically, imagine if you played football without pads, but you can only lateral backwards. And it's a constant play, so you don't have any stoppage or time. So it's like, imagine like playing soccer, but with football.
My name is Gabe Cash, and I got involved freshman year through Club Expo. Little thing for the freshmen to come, like find out what clubs and things are on campus. I just got involved because I like the team sport aspect and the intensity of it, and it's a good group of guys.
What would you say is one misconception about rugby?
Biggest misconception about rugby, I feel like, is the build of the athlete. Most guys that say they don't want to play or they can't play, they say they're too small or they're not fast enough or something like that. Our guys, especially, well, at least our team is all ends of the spectrum. We got guys that are 6'6", can barely move, and guys that are 140 pounds soaking wet. So I feel like it's just a mental game more than it is, physical, and what a lot of guys see, like especially related to football, because it's definitely a lot different.
Who do you play, and when and where do you play your games?
Depending on where, we usually have a couple home games at State Farm. We usually play for our Western Conference, Western Carolina, UNCC, UNC Chapel Hill, UNC Greensboro, Elon, and Wake Forest. And then it's divided another conference half, which is ECU, Wilmington, Coastal, and Furman.
Where's your favorite place to play, or who was your favorite team to play?
We love going down to Greenville and playing ECU, and they're just a great group of guys.
Yeah, we need more recruits. Always need new guys, especially freshmen or young guys that want to find something to do at the school. So.
Welcome back to Sports Bar, and now we're going to jump straight into our fantasy football scores for this week. So, taking a look at our matchups, guys, for the week, just initial impressions. How did your game go, Greg? We're taking a look at your matchup right now.
So I've got a -6 Green Bay defense.
Yeah, I mean that's okay. So that's one way to start things off. Crabtree still to play, but I don't think Crabtree would make. Oh, excuse me, he's on a bye week. Never mind. Never mind. All right. Well, this is kind of how this finished out. I mean, Breeze, Johnson, Blunt. Obviously, the top portion you had it working there. Yeah. So what didn't work for you down from there?
I mean, the defense, certainly for one. I figured they were playing the Titans, got a pretty good chance there. But that was bad calls, it turns out. Should have gone Broncos. So anyway, so that did not work for me. I had someone who was just never played, Barnage. And I had a couple players that were on bye, a couple players that were injured, so I was sort of scrambling, trying to get stuff going, and it did not go. Back to the Future took me down.
And Jack, I mean, do you think this Ezekiel Elliott kid's going to stick in the league? I don't even know.
I hope so.
I'm not sure.
I hope so, because I think he might be a constant draft pick for me in years to come. I mean, he has just overperformed expectations.
Oh, yeah.
I was expecting him, like, when I drafted him, I was like, you know what, there might be 1 or 2 games where he gets me, 20 points, maybe. Yeah. But I can probably, hope for at least 7 points from him. But no, it's just been an amazing season. Really carried the team. I think he'll take us all the way.
Possible league MVP at the end of the year. So, yeah, definitely something else out of Zeke all season long. I mean, outside of him, Wilson did his thing. Fitzgerald had a decent game, but really.
Yeah.
Again, Elliott was obviously the workhorse.
Yeah, I mean, I had a lot of people on bye week. I have a lot of the Raiders team have. Amari Cooper is one of my favorite receivers to play, and Derek Carr is usually the quarterback I start. And I was really worried about starting Russell Wilson. He was supposed to be a good quarterback this year. He's kind of been on the fence for most of the year, but had a really good game against the Patriots. And then, Larry Fitz always coming through, just all reliable there.
Yeah, we can chalk this one up to a Jack victory, and we'll go ahead and move on to the next team matchup here. All right, so taking a look at this matchup, Adam Witten just up and had a great week.
Second week in a row.
Second week, yeah, because he beat me in a week where I just kind of didn't think it was going to matter either way. But he came up and he had a great week, and the other squad, that's Carlin. I mean, guys, really taking a look at Adams' team. I mean, Robinson had 18, Rivers, 17. That's mediocre numbers for a quarterback, but just everyone had well, outside of AP, obviously, but I mean, everyone had a pretty solid week.
I mean, Adrian Peterson's still getting played, which is a bold move.
Yeah,
you just never
no,
quite know when those points might come into play. So yeah, that was definitely bold.
I think he's waiting for points of seasons past or something to make an appearance or whatnot. Matt Ryan, I mean, that offense has been pretty high flying this year. Only having 12 points for Carlin, that's certainly a letdown. Jay Stu, 3 points as a diehard Panthers fan. It would have been nice to see him get a few more fantasy points, because that would have probably equated to better play on the field. But yeah, just probably the most consistent top to bottom performance I've actually seen in a fantasy matchup. But I guess Adam will improve to 3-7 on the year, and we'll go ahead and roll on to our next two matchups. And here, guys, Rob and Sam. Sam, Rogers came through, Murray came through. What do you make of this week?
Yeah, I think it's just the top three, really. I didn't get much out of anybody else. Aaron Rodgers, he didn't have the greatest game of the season, but he got me the points where he needed to, got the rushing touchdown. I think he got like a 10-yard rushing touchdown, so that really helps you out if your quarterback can get that. And then DeMarco Murray busts a 75-yard touchdown run, in the first quarter. Then he throws a touchdown and just keeps stacking on the yards. So I knew that was going to be a good day for him. I just no real production on the other side. Cam Newton, he was worrying me in the first half. I thought, wow, Cam Newton's going to put together a really nice game. And then, I was kind of torn as a Panthers fan. I was like, I really want them to win, but as someone who's going up against a team who has Cam as their starting quarterback, I was like, an interception wouldn't be the worst thing right now. It was a really tough position for me to be in. But
yeah,
I mean, just the comeback train just keeps rolling unless Tyler Eifert has the best game of his career.
I was going to say he's still yet to play. He's in Monday Night Football tonight. But you mentioned one thing you mentioned was about the rest of everyone else outside of Murray, Gordon, and Rodgers didn't have the greatest of weeks. Well, I would argue that they just simply getting on the board for those other players. That is an undervalued part of fantasy football, I feel like, because you could just as easily have put up nothing or negative points somehow. So simply getting 5 out of Kelsey goes a long way.
Yeah, and I went with the two tight end set this week. And,
going jumbo. Going jumbo package on us.
I wish I
formation.
For some reason, I have 3 tight ends on my roster. If I had started Kyle Rudolph, that would have been 12 points as opposed to 5 from either Kelsey or Gronkowski.
Well, Gronk, do we even consider him a tight end anymore? Or is he just the best athlete in the NFL? So
if he had caught that last touchdown pass last night, not only would they have maybe won, but I mean also it would just been outstanding with the offensive and defensive pass interference that went uncalled, and then just him flailing around.
Much like Jabril Peppers that plays for Michigan in college, who plays all over the field. I think Gronk could do the same thing. But like you said, barring Tyler Eifert having just an incredible game, it looks right now, Sam, that you'll be able to edge Rob. But I guess we'll wait to see after this Monday night matchup. But we'll move on here to the final matchup of the week. And this was my matchup. I was playing Joey Beretti. Again, I'm Cam Newton's towel. And I had some issues with different people either being on bye or this, that, and the other injury-wise. Now, Joey hasn't necessarily managed his lineup most of the season. But I was extremely happy and somewhat surprised. And we were talking before this segment. They were trying to give me credit for thinking Mariota having this insight. No, I just had to pick up another quarterback because Andrew Luck was on bye, and he was the top-rated quarterback that was still left in free agency. But what do we see here, guys?
I think we just see a good production out of Mariota and obviously Bell. But also, if you look at Joey's score, 17 points from your quarterback is about what you expect. That's about
out of
average.
Bortles, at least.
Yeah, out of Bortles. But, not really anything else going for him. Julio Jones got him 13 points, but that, for a wide receiver, that's an okay day. But I think you have solid production from
Oakland being on a bye.
Bell. Jordy Nelson got you 18. Devontae Adams got you 15. I mean, that's a good week out of your wide receivers.
Yeah, and I definitely the last 3 weeks, which this will be the first week since the previous last 3 weeks that I'll actually probably get a W. But I had really been banking on those Green Bay wide receivers and Richard Rodgers. So finally paid off this week. Hopefully that'll pay dividends down the road potentially. And if not, I'll have to work something else up with my lineup because I'll improve to 5-5 and Joey will fall to 3-7. And right now I'm not out of things. Most of us, outside of Greg, who's just been on a tear most of the year, are kind of right there in that 5-5, range. So the playoffs, I think, will really be interesting here on Sports Bar, and I'm really excited to get into those because, the regular season, it is what it is. But the playoffs, cream rises to the top. Travis remembers to set his lineup every single week, and we'll see how things shake out. But that was fantasy football for this week, and that's all the time we have on today's show. Join us next week for an all-new episode of Sports Bar, and thank you for joining us. I'm Travis Stanley. Good night.